Anthony on Air podcast back for another episode. Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, we're going to talk about the huge news that is happening. President Trump impeached for a second time. What that means moving forward. And President Trump speaks. We'll actually hear, I'm going to play for you everything he had to say today during this impeachment process. Plus, Ghislaine Maxwell has a TV show coming.
Stop it.
Ghislaine Maxwell TV show. Plus, Nicole Kidman was just cast as Lucille Ball. Might have a couple of other little things to throw into the mix on this very special episode that is brought to you by our good pals over at Hero Soap Company. Pick up a bar right now. Link in the description below. Frankie C is here with us for this episode. How you doing, my friend?
Doing okay. How's everything on your end?
I'm doing pretty good. I was surprised to see that the president was impeached earlier today. Shocked, if you will. I was.
Why?
I didn't think it was going to happen. I checked in on Twitter earlier and I was like, oh, they're debating. I thought this was like the debate. I feel like last time there was like debates and this and that.
There were.
And then next thing I knew, they were going for a vote. So
the debates happened all throughout the night. It was like nonstop overnight.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I kind of just checked in during the day and I was like, oh, cool, they're debate. Okay, whatever. And then next thing I know, they were having a vote and I was like, oh, is this going to happen? And next thing I know, boom, it had happened. Yep. Interesting this time, 10 Republican House members voted to impeach, which
That's correct.
We did not get last time. So 10.
I think last time we got one, right?
I think it was a small number, like one. Yeah, I heard a rumor as I started.
Romney, I think was a lone guy.
As I started to check in, I was like, oh, there might be as many as 7. And you know me, I'm like harsh on the media. I'm like, I don't, you can't really believe everything, you hear. It's like especially when they're talking about, by the way, when I say that, I mean, when something is reported, that's different than when they're like, sources say, we hear, blah, blah, blah. That stuff I tend to take with a grain of salt. So that was
like the things we say, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So it was like 7. I was like, when they said 7, I was like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. And then it was like, oh, there was actually 10. I was like, well, okay then. I was like, well, then that was.
They were off, but the other way.
They had that one right. So it is a historical moment. This is the first president in the history of the United States ever to be impeached twice. That's official.
And in one term.
Yeah.
There might be future presidents impeached twice, but will they be impeached in one term?
Excuse me.
Nobody will. History.
Nobody will beat me. I got impeached twice. Best president as far as impeached goes.
Look, okay. Ready? Boom. All right. The Deuce. They're going to call me Donald Deuce.
Clinton only had 1 impeachment. I'm that much better than Bill Clinton.
Twice as good.
Yes.
Took him 2 terms to get 1 impeachment. I did 2 impeachments, 1 term. Unprecedented, historic.
I would have had a 3rd impeachment if Biden didn't steal this election. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
At least 3. 2 more in 4 years. We could have done it, but they stole the election.
They stole a 3rd impeachment. We would have had it. We would have done it.
History in the making.
Why do I love bad impressions so much?
They stole my internet.
I love my bad impressions almost as much as I love your good impressions, Frank. I just don't know why I enjoy.
They're fun. They're fun to do.
They're fun. Yeah.
They're fun to watch, but they're also fun to do. Everybody watching and listening, you should try it. It's cathartic. It helps.
Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. This is not what we're here for. We're here to tell the truth. Okay. I'll be driving around in the car by myself and I'll be like, excuse me. Where's your blinker? Could have used more blinker.
Next time I go to a drive-thru, I'm going to order as Donald Trump. Big Mac, please.
Can I get it?
Large fries.
Can I get?
Excuse me. Apple pie, because it's American. I only eat American things. Apple pie. Could you build a wall between the apple pie and the McNuggets so they don't touch? We can't have them mingling. Can't have them cross. Can't cross the border.
Yes, hi. Excuse me. I'd like to place an order. I have a problem, though. I want a quarter pounder, but I gotta go number one. Can you make the quarter pounder meal number one so I could order the number one meal, please? Thank you.
I want the 2 cheeseburger meal because I was impeached twice. 1 cheeseburger per impeachment.
All right.
That's
now,
my rule.
You went too
far. That's the diet I am on.
That was now you're showing your agenda, Frank, and that's
See, no, if there was an impeachment special on the menu, it would have 2 of everything. You can either call it the Noah's Ark or the impeachment.
Now I'm on everybody's side. That's trashing you in the comments. Okay. No, but I would love to know from people in the comments, and if you're listening on Twitter, tweet us at Anthony's Faves. Links info over at anthonyandair.com. Were you surprised by the impeachment? I was. I didn't see it coming. Maybe because I wasn't paying attention enough. I didn't think that they had time. I know when Pence said no to invoking the 25th Amendment, I thought that'll be it. You know, I didn't think it would come about this quickly.
Subject.
Yeah, and you know what? I would also love to know how people feel about the 10 Republicans voting for it, because the story that's circulating now, and by the way, this came from a Republican, one of the Republicans that voted for it. He was saying, and I forget his name, I was, just looking at a clip. He was saying that there would have been a considerable amount more of Republicans that voted for it, but they didn't because typical to you. This is, by the way, typical politics. They won't vote for something if it's going to cost them their seat next time up. So they would, so those backdoor conversations happen all the time where it's like, I would vote for this.
They got to represent their constituents. I don't
even think it's that. I think they're just looking out. No, I think they're just looking out for their own skin, where they're like, I can't vote for this amendment, or I can't vote for this bill, or I can't vote for impeachment, because if I do, I'll get clobbered next time out when I got to go run, or the Republican Party will run another Republican against me or whatever, so they can't. If you'll notice, the representatives in delicate areas that are up for grabs, those are the ones that don't take those chances. The ones that are in Republican, lockholds that are never going to not vote Republican, they can take a hit. No, I'm saying they can take a hit because they know they're not going to vote for their Democrat in this area. Yeah.
You think no matter what they say, they're going to be reelected next time? They could say, Trump should go to jail, and they'll still be, no matter what, simply because they're Republican.
Across the board, correct? Yeah.
But what if another Republican runs against them?
It's possible, but those people feel like, I can withstand that. Those I'm talking about those people, and not just impeachment. I'm talking about in general. Like if there's a vote coming up, if they think that it'll cost them their seat, they won't vote. They won't vote that way, even though they may agree with it or believe with it. So that stuff tends to happen.
I think there's also a little fear. I mean, I don't know why now, but maybe that's why there are 10 people, because a little bit of the fear of retaliation from the president himself.
There is that. Yep. Well, yeah.
But now there's only a week left, so I think some of them saw that they had nothing to lose on that end.
Yeah. I am
so
dying.
That's that way.
I'm dying to see what happens after the inauguration, because I honestly really truly feel that, and we're going to play you President Trump's comments in a second, so you'll hear it for yourself. I really truly feel that he feels that he screwed up royally in this last week, especially in this last week. And I'm curious to see how this plays out, because I don't think anybody, there may be people with strong opinions out there, but I don't think we all really know how this is going to be. Is he going to be
Nobody does.
Teflon Don and maintain his status and stature after he leaves office, or is it going to be the kind of thing where people don't really need him anymore? He's not the president. He doesn't have the power. So the Republicans that were just going along to get what they needed, are they going to start pulling away from him and throw their support behind whoever else is next, or maybe their own self. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the Republican Party that want to run in 2024 that are going to start to mount that pressure of, forget that guy. He screwed everything up in the last 2 months. Get behind me, and I will take the Republican Party into the next step.
I think it's going to be more of that, more of the Republican Party disassociating themselves with Trump. They're going to write him off as we tried this, it didn't work, let's move on from him, and let's look forward to the next person that we can get in office. I think that's what they're going to try to do gradually, but I think that's the direction they're going to go in. It's not a dumb direction, but I think that's the way they'll go.
Well, I'll say this. That's a distinct possibility, but I don't think he's going away either way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think he is.
He's not. I don't think he's going away either way. I just want to know how he's going to be received by both people, government, and the party, because I think that if there is an opportunist there that is going to jump up and be like, forget him, ride my coattails, that person I think's got to be ready for a fight with President Trump. And I also think too, Frank, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I also think that, Mitch McConnell's response to all this has been really, really interesting because, he said a couple of things up at the front. He said that he didn't believe that they should do the impeachment. I believe he said that a day or two ago.
No, he said that he did. He wanted to go for impeachment.
Oh, did he say that?
He supported impeachment. Mitch McConnell supported it.
Okay, then he supported. I thought it was the other way around, because I was going to say, because then his next thing was he went out to the Republican Party and he said, "There's no blanket vote here. You guys vote your conscience. Vote for how you want to vote." And I also think too, it's a little bit easier for him in this scenario personally, because he's no longer going to be the leader in the Senate. Chuck Schumer is going to be the leader, so he's not going to have to face any of this. He's going to be the minority leader in that once that goes.
Plus, I think he's hedging his bets too. I mean, he saw that his race was very close on his last election. He won re-election, but I think he saw that it was very close, so he's kind of riding the fence a little bit here. He's supported Trump all this time, and then he's supporting impeachment. He's not supporting 25th Amendment. He's kind of riding the fence a little. He'll say I was supporting impeachment, but then he'll waver. He's trying to play it safe, I think.
Well, let's be honest too. Let's remember, and a lot of, because 4 years ago was a long time ago, especially since this year took 10 years to get through. But 4 years ago, nobody really liked this guy or took him seriously. Like when you look at Ted Cruz, Trump,
nobody liked him now
until he started winning
half the country.
Yeah, and no. There's no fighting this until he started winning
the
primaries.
guys he was running against and stuff. Yeah,
I didn't like McConnell and Graham and all these guys. They weren't piping up and going, "You know who our man is, Trump." When there was like 10 guys in the field, nobody was saying that. It was only until he started winning that they were like,
him.
Right. So I think that, and that's why I say I wonder what the response is going to be afterwards, because the party, despite the fact of maybe they didn't like him, got behind him because he was working, and it was working, and he was winning, and he was getting things passed, and he was doing what he had to do. He was helping the agenda. Once you don't have that main source of power for why you're there, I don't know what happens to you. I'll be curious to see what happens to you, because up until now, he's still the president. So he's got that for anybody to keep anybody in line. He's still got that. Once you lose that, I don't know where we go from here.
I would love to see, what's his name? Lindsey Graham. Once Trump is out of office and he's gone, I would love to hear Lindsey Graham, because in the beginning of this whole thing 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, whenever, he was saying, if we get Trump elected, if Trump is elected, then our party's going to crash and burn. It's going to be over, and we'll have ourselves to blame. He's the worst thing to happen. He has no more. He was saying the worst things about Trump in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And once he's not in power anymore. It'd be very interesting to hear what he says.
And it's also interesting to watch McConnell and even Democrats and Republicans right now taking the temperature of the room and their constituents on what's exactly going to happen. Because I will say, when the Capitol happened a week ago, we knew it was bad. But I feel like the more this week has gone on and the more the stories have come out and the more footage we've seen from these things, I don't know how anybody else feels, but I feel worse about it today than I did last Wednesday and last Thursday, because I've seen more of what really went down everywhere. And it looks worse to me today than it did last week. I don't know if I'm alone in that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not, once you dive deeper into that kind of a situation, the more information that comes out, it's not going to be good information.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're going to get profiles on the people that did it. You're going to get the number of people who died rose as the days went on. I think it's 5 people total died from that. And the first day they were thinking 3, but then a couple of days went by, people passed away. So it just got worse and worse. But I don't know. I feel like the president, he put out a statement today regarding the impeachment a little bit, but it was mostly about last week. And I think that statement should have come out a week ago.
All right, well, we'll play exactly what the president said right after we do our sponsor read for Hero Soap Company. Absolute best soap on the planet. No debate about this. No taking the temperature in the room. We all know that this is the greatest, excuse me, greatest soap ever made.
2 bars, please.
Ever.
2 bars.
Agenda, Frank. Your agenda's showing. That's my favorite comment, by the way, when people are like, your agenda's showing.
Do they have peach or mint flavor? Because I'm peach mint. I love peach mint. I'm peach mint. That's my favorite flavor. Smells the best. I use it all the time. I use it at least twice in my term.
That's not that funny, but it caught me so by surprise. That's why.
That could be my epitaph.
That was like
it wasn't that funny, but he caught you by surprise.
It's so dumb. I hate that I'm laughing so hard at that. But it's just like when a fighter gets caught with an uppercut. You just can't. You go down sometimes. You can't help it. I'm like mint. There's no peach flavor and I was like, okay. Here's the thing about Hero Soap Company. Doesn't care who you voted for. Doesn't care if you're Democrat or Republican. It'll clean you just the same. It's because it's the greatest soap that's ever been made. You buy a bar of this, they send a bar over to the troops, and then they take a little money out of their own kick, and they go ahead and they build mortgage-free homes for our veterans. Veteran-owned and operated company, soap made right here in the good old US of A. That's why your old pal Ant endorses this, because it is all kinds of good, win-win-win all around. So support Hero Soap Company. Click the link in the description below. You can get a subscription and save 20% off using the promo code Anthony. That's promo code Anthony. Use the link in this episode description. Okay, we're going to do something now that Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere else won't allow to happen. We're going to let the president speak, and let's hear what he had to say. This is a statement that he released.
My fellow American. Oh, did you want to do it?
Just moments ago.
Oh, it's the real president. Oh, okay.
Yeah, here you go.
Got it.
Speak to you tonight about the troubling events of the past week. As I have said, the incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. It angered and appalled millions of Americans across the political spectrum. I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law, supporting the men and women of law enforcement, and upholding our nation's most sacred traditions and values. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence.
I love that he said that line specifically. No true supporter of mine could ever support political violence. I just think that that's so important because I feel like a lot of people, maybe this is just social media talk and rhetoric, but I feel like a lot of people are out of control the last week or so with everything that's going on. And to say that, I think, was so important. I'm going to give him credit for a lot of things in this particular instance because he's saying all the right things in this, and there's more, but we'll play more for you. But I think the overall thing is, and Frank alluded to this a second ago, this was the statement that he should have made a week ago.
Can I just interject? This is the kind of statement he should have made 4 years ago, before he said other things that sort of, you could say, promoted some sort of violence. Like when he says police don't, you don't have to go too easy on them. Beat the hell out of those guys, I'll pay your court fees if you punch that guy in the face, that kind of stuff. You can't say he hasn't promoted some kind of violence in a little, whether he was joking or not, he said those things over the course of his. Yep. So he should have said this kind of speech in the beginning of his term. And that's the kind of message he should have stuck with throughout.
It's just
my opinion.
That's your opinion. When I saw what was happening last week and I saw that he tweeted out a message, and I think a lot of people feel this way, even people who don't criticize him and support him. A lot of people, when he got to the part about the election was stolen from him, but everybody go home, I think a lot of people went, oh, come on, guy. Like,
he says every time this is my own personal, every time he says that stuff, and it's lies, you just go, come on, we've heard you say this a million times. It's just not true.
Yeah.
You could say these things, no one's stopping you from saying them, but they're lies. When you say lies that infuriate people, that's not helping the matter.
I think however you feel about that, lies or not lies, whichever side you land on with that, doesn't even matter to me. It didn't need to be brought up there, is the point that I'm making. Like when you got people knocking on the door and they're like going crazy, now's not the time to be like, hey, we're right, but go home. That's the time to be like, listen, it's gone too far.
Let's calm down.
Calm it down.
Stop. Yes.
Right. We'll regroup, whatever, which is what he's doing in this statement.
Exactly. No, this was nice. He's doing the presidential thing. And of course, he's sticking to the prompter this time, which is what he always should do. So points for sticking to the prompter. When he goes off script, it's not a good idea.
No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement. You are attacking it, and you are attacking our country. We cannot tolerate it. Tragically, over the course of the past year, made so difficult because of COVID-19, we have seen political violence spiral out of control. We have seen too many riots, too many mobs, too many acts of intimidation and destruction. It must stop. Whether you are on the right or on the left, a Democrat or a Republican, there is never a justification for violence. No excuses, no exceptions. America is a nation of laws.
So, and I think the other thing to keep in mind too is I think he knows he screwed up last week saying what he said.
Right.
He's saying the right things right now.
He is.
I can't help but think he could have salvaged all of this if he had done this last week. And I bring that up because you ever get involved in an argument with somebody, or you're always fighting with somebody, and you get so enthralled with winning the argument with that person that you kind of forget there's other people in the room that are talking or that are making points or that are whatever. You're just so I think that's what happened to him. I think he was so, like, part of the reason why people love him is because he's not a teleprompter president. You know, they love him because he does speak off the cuff and he's not traditional and he doesn't do the quote unquote presidential things. But I bring this up because in that moment last week, that's what was needed. Leadership, calming everything down, putting personal things aside. That's what he did today is what he needed last week. And he knows that. Everybody kind of knows that, you know, and I think, you know, I think he just, but am I making my point, Frank, that he lost himself? He's so, and he's done this before. He would so be in an argument with the media. And in some cases, he was making good points against the media. But then you kind of sit there and you look at it and go, but what, you know, but you gotta, but what about forget the fight with the media right now.
He's too busy fighting. Exactly.
And be the leader. Like the advantage.
That's the problem. That's the miss. That's the thing he misses most of the time.
The advantage
he's too busy fighting. Fighting the media, calling them names. And saying everybody's against me and the election was stolen. He's too busy doing that.
And unfortunately,
not being a president.
Unfortunately, this is always going to be the case for the president, for any president. You have to be the bigger person in that situation. The dynamic of the situation is the media can be as shitty as they want, and it's not fair, and it never will be fair. But you're the president. You're responsible for all the people. You got to be the one that takes it on the chin. By the way, and every president has taken it on the chin.
Every one of them. From
some media somewhere. Bush took it from all the liberal media. Obama took it from the conservative media. That stuff always happens, and it will always happen. And you got to rise above and be the bigger person. I think he lost himself in a couple of things here. The idea of maybe that he could squeak this out, or that he was just always in this fight, or he was like, I'm going to keep going on what got me here. But at a certain point, again, you got to read the room, and he missed the temperature of the room last week.
Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Now I am asking everyone who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions, calm tempers, and help to promote peace in our country.
By the way, this was extraordinarily well thought out. Like, you can tell this wasn't thrown together in a day. There was a bunch of writers that took time
they took a week for this.
Craft this message, because not only does it put the onus on, hey, if you did this, you're not part of my crew, but now this is also your responsibility to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because it is hurting what we're trying to do more than helping. See, people thought we're going to take this back no matter what, and that's not the way to go. You're hurting the cause more than anything, especially if he wants to run again in 2024. Now's the time to not only not do it, but make sure that nobody else does it.
One other thing I'll say. I'm sorry, but before, he actually said, when he goes on teleprompter, when he sticks to the teleprompter, he says things like COVID-19 instead of China virus. When he goes off script, he says that stuff, and that's hurtful. So kudos for saying COVID-19 like a responsible person.
Been reporting that additional demonstrations are being planned in the coming days, both here in Washington and across the country. I have been briefed by the U.S. Secret Service on the potential threats. Every American deserves to have their voice heard in a respectful and peaceful way. That is your First Amendment right. But I cannot emphasize that there must be no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement. I have directed federal agencies to use all necessary resources to maintain order. In Washington, D.C., we are bringing in thousands of National Guard members to secure the city and ensure that a transition can occur safely and without incident. Like all of you, I was shocked and deeply saddened by the calamity at the Capitol last week. I want to thank the hundreds of millions of incredible American citizens who have responded to this moment with calm, moderation, and grace.
All, again, continues to make good points. But if I can just say something here. He's saying all the right things, and I hope people respond to it. But if you want to really do the right thing, you show up on Wednesday, the 20th, and you stand there.
It's not about him.
Like it's one thing to say, hey, everybody, I know there's plans happening. Let's calm it down. Don't do it. I think you put the exclamation point and I think he can stop these people from doing whatever they're planning on doing. Maybe yes, not everybody, but he can make a big impact here. He's got a lot of loyal followers.
He can tell people stay home, which he's doing now, which is great.
Right.
He can say stay home and don't make make any trouble, don't make any violence, which he's doing. He could have done that a long time ago, but he's doing it now, and that's a good message.
But if he goes, he's really sending a message to everybody that enough is enough. I also think, and again, if I'm in President Trump's corner and I'm advising the president's like, Ant, what do you think I should do here politically? I'm telling him, go to that inauguration. If you think you have a chance to run again in 2024, show up there and you be the bigger person. You be the president of the United States that you believe that you are. That's what I'm telling him.
We'll get through this challenge just like we always do. I also want to say a few words about the unprecedented assault on free speech.
This is where the liberal media would cut him off. Can I just say, can we just give snaps to the Anthony on Air podcast, your old pal Ant and Frank here? We're going to let this continue to roll. This is where the traditional liberal media would have stopped.
They're not cutting him off.
I'm just saying, let the man talk, damn it.
We have seen
they're not cutting him off. That's you.
These are tense and difficult times. The efforts to censor, cancel, and blacklist our fellow citizens are wrong, and they are dangerous. What is needed now is for us to listen to one another, not to silence one another. All of us can choose by our actions to rise above the rancor and find common ground and shared purpose. We must focus on advancing the interests of the whole nation, delivering the miracle vaccines, defeating the pandemic.
All right, I'm going to stop it there because I think we get the point. He's not going to say anything new.
So are you the liberal media cutting him off?
No, but I let him get that in there. But
all right, but he's saying we got to rise above the rancor. He's most of the rancor. I'm sorry, but he's the rancor. He's the guy going telling lies and spreading BS all over the place and saying nonsense. Oh, but we've got to rise above it.
To my point, though, rising above it would be going to the inauguration. That would be rising above it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. If he went to the inauguration, he would prove that it was not about himself. Not going to the inauguration, that's him taking care of him.
Yeah. But I think he makes an important point here, Frank. And if I was garnering cheers from Republicans and jeers from Democrats this whole time, I'm going to reverse it right now. He makes a good point that there's an awful lot of censorship happening right now. And let me finish. There's an and I'm not just talking to you, Frank. I'm talking to all the people that are like, unsubscribe. there's an awful lot of censorship happening, and unprecedented, scary things. Like, to take a world leader, put aside whether he deserved it or not. Let's just put that aside for a second.
That's a big thing to put aside.
It's a big thing to put aside. It's a lot of, excuse me. I don't know if we have enough side to put that. But let's put it over aside for a second. Whether he deserved
just comb it over.
Whether he deserved it or not. And again, I think everybody knows my feeling on it, that he did something wrong. I think everybody kind of feels like knows he did something wrong there. To put that bit of a silence on it is a scary thing. My point is, it's not so much whether he deserved it or not. What's scary is that the power to make that decision lies within Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and higher up people in these companies versus the American people. That, to me, is a problem. By the way, not a problem that Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg should be blamed for, but it is a problem that has naturally occurred in our society that we never ever really had before. You can say to me, Aunt, he deserved to be suspended for violating terms of service. Obviously, he was impeached today. I can't argue with you there. But at the same time, I just want everybody to know, especially my Democrat friends, that it is scary to put that power in such a small amount of people, no matter who they are. Now, the other thing that was scary with all of this is Parler had become this place where people who felt like they were being censored on mainstream social media went to go and have their fair say, right? We got a Parler profile. We were putting the show up on Parler, probably not as often as we should have, but we were doing it. Same way we got a TikTok profile, the same way we got a Triller profile. Like, people haven't even heard of half of it. People don't even know
those
what
things.
Triller. Yeah, if somebody goes, oh, this is a social network, we immediately sign up. We start putting stuff out, because it's not about politics or agenda for us. It's about reaching people and entertaining them as much as we possibly can. So if you tell me we got to go to Triller to do that, we'll go to Triller, you know. But Parler became this sort of place, cesspool, some may say, okay, but whatever it was, for right-wing conservative people. And then the next thing I know, Amazon, well, I shouldn't say that. Apple started with, we don't know if we're going to put it in our app store anymore. Well, okay, that's fair. If you don't want to carry a product in your app store, you have every right to do that. And then
you shouldn't have a problem with any of the other stuff.
Well, hold on.
If a company can pick and choose.
Yeah, but hold on. And then Amazon comes out and says, well, we don't know if we want to have these things on our server. Now, again, I will say again, and I knew this was coming with Parler to begin with, because the reason why people flew over to Parler is because Parler was what Facebook was when Facebook first started. It was the wild, wild west. There was no moderation. There was no responsibility. There was no people keeping a watchful eye. And what happened? Bad stuff started to happen. And what was the result? Facebook had to put rules in to make sure that said bad things don't happen. And by bad things, I mean people injuring people on the platform, people hurting people, people bullying people. You remember those stories back in the day of so-and-so like strangled somebody out live on Facebook and blah, 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 and all this crazy stuff that was happening because they didn't have all the regulations and things that they needed in place. So they had to go put that in place. And then what happens? Everybody then goes to Parler. But where do you think Parler was going to wind up had it continued to grow the way Facebook grew? They would have had to install
rules, have regulations.
Exactly. So
that's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of Parler. I'll say that on the record. You got to have some sort of regulations on these things, or else it gets dangerous.
Right. So
for everyone.
So whether Parler deserved it or not, it's a fair argument that they deserved it because they didn't have those things in place. That's fine. But my point is that this avalanche goes so quickly, before we could even like assess the situation and what's going on. And maybe more of an opportunity should have been given to Parler to get their house in order. Now, at the same time, I recognize that bad things can happen if people are allowed to continue to communicate on these platforms and plan on causing harm. We're always going to try and shut that down no matter what the case. By the way, Twitter, people can get all up in arms that this is all about President Trump. Twitter's been doing that stuff for years overseas.
So many people have been banned from Twitter. Now, President Trump is not the first person.
Exactly. Where do you think terrorist chatting and all that sort of stuff? They've had to be on top of that for quite a while. So that element of it also exists. But Frank, we live in scary times. It's harder for me to convince Democrats of that because they hate him so much. And fair enough for me. Again, I'm not here to change your mind. My point is, again, it's very scary, and it's through no fault of Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey that we've gotten to a place where people's ability to communicate in what's the popular form of communication now is entirely up to them. And I want to just say this too, because I read everything that everybody says. People make really good points. On the one hand, you can say Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Triller, whatever, Parler, that's how we communicate. And if you are going to stifle somebody's ability to communicate on that, especially a world leader, you are censoring them. You are taking away their First Amendment right. But the other thing, the interesting argument that I found with that is I saw a lot of people respond to that with, the man has a press room right in his house, and he can walk right down that hall.
He could go on TV anytime,
turn on a microphone, and speak on every single cable, television, and let's be honest, Twitter as well, because Twitter picks up everything that's live breaking news, and he could get that message out. So how much censoring is it really if you still have the ability to do that? And I look at all of those, both sides of those arguments, and I go, they're both correct. I can't pick one in this scenario. They're both correct. On the one hand, you got too much power in a small amount of people's hands. On the other hand, he does have a press room, and he can get a message out if he needs to. So
the thing is, these companies, they're run by a handful of people, and those are the people who, like, if I ran a company like Twitter, and I saw people on that platform were saying harmful things that threatened people's lives and stuff, I would write a rule that said, no, you can't do that on my platform. So that's well within his right.
Agreed.
Agreed,
Well
Frank.
Within
Jack.
Nobody's denying that.
So
I agree.
Would the answer, then you say, well, it takes away the First Amendment right. Well, the First Amendment is to protect you. It's so that you can say what you want about, and the government can't shut you down. It can't tell you to stop talking. Can't make a law that throws you in jail because you said something bad about the government. But it's not as cut and dry as all that. So you can't walk into a movie theater and yell fire. So that's something that you can't do. You don't have the freedom of speech to do that. You can't go on a plane and yell bomb. You're going to get arrested. So there are certain things that you can and can't do. Freedom of speech doesn't say.
Ben Stiller taught me that in Meet the Parents. You cannot go on a plane.
You can't. Bomb, 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 bomb doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
So you can't, the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to say anything you want, anytime, anywhere. It's not like the way it works. It's so that the government can't stop you from voicing your opinion and saying something bad about the government. You could do that all day long. But when Twitter says you can't do that on my platform, that's like NBC. I can't go on NBC and say screw you to whoever I want because NBC makes the rules. I can't go on CBS and do that. I can't go on Fox and do that. Why? Because people run those things. Just like think of Twitter as a TV station. You can't just walk in and say whatever you want. There are rules.
Yeah, but you see the difference. The difference here is, and radio and TV people will tell you this all the time because this pisses them off. The difference here is television is in the public trust, right? So if you want to operate a television station, you have to have an FCC license, and the
Run by the government.
And the FCC license is administered by the government. And the reason why
there should be something like that for social media,
right? And something that people might not know is that the FCC TV stations, radio stations, have to do certain things, like run public programming, like run what's the warning thing there, Frank? The EAS tests. They have to run. They have to be
emergency alert system. Yeah,
They have to be a part of the emergency alert system. Why? Because if something goes wrong, they need to get the word out, and they need to, right? So if they don't maintain certain things, TV stations, they'll lose their license. They won't be allowed to be TV stations anymore. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they don't have that problem. And
why is that though? I mean, when they came up with TV, people just didn't go on TV, and it was the wild, wild west. It was regulated.
Because the reason why is because TV took so much longer that as TV grew and came into the masses, there was enough time for the government to say, okay, CBS, you get a license. ABC, you get a license. NBC, you get a license. And that was it.
There should be social media licenses.
But that was it. My point is that was it. And that was it for how long? I mean, for a really long time. And if you had another station in your town outside of those, it was locally owned and they had obligations to do. Facebook started
with radio
like this and it exploded and moved way faster, and our government hasn't reacted. And my point here is, if I could wrap this up.
So Facebook and stuff, it's been around forever.
No, it hasn't. Facebook, it's
been around for like 15 years.
11.
Give or take. 11. Okay, 11 years. Why can't Facebook, Twitter, and all this thing just be shoveled into the FCC's jurisdiction? Federal Communications. They should be able to, regulate some stuff. I'm not saying total control. Everybody's going to say, oh, then the government's running your speech and blah, blah, blah. But that's what they do on networks and things like that. This is at least a social platform where you could communicate. But there are rules. You have to follow some rules. You can't be a free-for-all on everything. That's just irresponsible.
Let me blow your mind. That's what the president's talking about. That's what he wants put in place.
But he's talking about free speech.
Excuse me. Do you agree with me? I think Frank just started agreeing with me. This is
he said, no. He's saying that the banning of people is taking away the free speech. I'm saying that people should be banned if they mess up.
Right, but I think the overall point here is, so we don't get too lost in the weeds, and this is my point. This is a problem. It's nobody's. I mean, there's blame to go around, but it's nobody's fault. I don't have the answer. I haven't heard anybody who does have the answer, but I think we all need to acknowledge that we gotta get something figured out soon, because we can't have this happen again.
Yeah, I mean, we have put things in place that have taken care of things like this, like TV, like radio. This is another media that needs to be regulated. I don't see the problem. It should just be shoveled into, or create another organization that regulates it. That's as simple as that.
I think something needs to happen, but I don't think anybody knows really what that is just yet. And I think that's okay. Like I said, as long as we acknowledge there's a problem here that we need to work on together, because the difference is we saw radio coming, right? We saw all these entities coming. We knew, regulations were put in place before these places, before TV stations, radio stations became what they were. This time around, all this stuff was privately owned. They led instead of the government leading, in the other way around. And now you're literally looking at, a company that has ownership over something that goes, wait a second, you want me to give this up? No, that would be like going to, GM and saying like, hey, can't own your own company anymore. You gotta, you gotta give it up to.
No, they can own it, just like CBS and NBC and Fox are owned by, whoever owns them. But they have to be, follow some rules. Just like every other organization has to follow rules.
I agree, but it's a little bit harder to do this time around because there already is some protections in place for these companies, because they can't be sued because their content doesn't come from them; it comes from us. And B, again, like I said, they invented the game, and the government was way too slow on figuring that out.
Yeah.
So
I think it was you either the last podcast or the podcast before that when the younger people come into government, they'll be able to sort of figure this out better than the people that are there now are. No fault, they're there. A lot of people know what they're doing, but when it comes to the younger stuff, these older people don't know how to respond to all of it. I mean, yeah, they might know how to use it, or they have other people using it, but the ins and outs, what you can do, what you can't do. I mean, the younger people are going to figure that out. The next generation is going to figure that out.
Exactly. It's not as important to the 60-year-old in government right now as it is to the 40-year-old. Right. And then the person who's 20 right now that's going to become a senator or whatever in the next 5 years, they're going to be even better at it than the 40-year-old. Yeah, so it's just the way that it is. It's just the way that it is. But it's a problem, and we need to figure it out. And I think we all just need to acknowledge it. And that's the thing. Like, I wish it wasn't so much about Twitter versus Trump. Like, yeah, that's an issue, but the underlying more important issue is it's about small amount of people being able to control somebody that we as a nation chose to put in place. Because just as easily as it's Twitter versus Jack Dorsey, Twitter versus Trump today, if Twitter gets sold to some crazy right-wing Republican whatever, and he turns around and starts censoring Joe Biden, whether Biden deserves it or not, everybody on the other side would be completely up in arms, and we'd all be saying the same thing. You can't have that. You can't have this person deciding what the president says.
There's a difference, though. There's a difference, because when someone says something that leads to people being hurt,
in this particular case, the difference is what he said was wrong. But our point is what's to stop it next time from not being that, and that censoring happening anyway.
The beautiful part is that the people that frequent these social media sites, Twitter, whatever, will see that and respond. Like if that happened, I think it was. People can, I don't want to say cancel, but they can respond in their way of, not using the app or switching to a different app. There are options that you can utilize. Like if the app went south completely and just started promoting, let's say let's go the extreme. Let's say it started promoting, fascism and white supremacy and all that. People would see that and start going, what the hell's going on? And either get away from it, and Twitter would go like this.
Hope so.
Hopefully it's up to the consumer. The consumer would purchase the item or not purchase the item. You know what I mean? The item would disappear.
One would hope, and I would agree with you, but I also think that it's harder than ever to do these things. And
I agree.
And most people don't know this, but there's been 17 things that have come and gone and failed, that was supposed to be the conservatives' answer for this, or the Democrats' answer for here's the new social media. Believe me, I'm on all of them. If it gets enough of a buzz, I go and start a profile. I kid you not.
I know.
And there was a wiki, whatever, that was the latest one that was gaining a lot of traction. And then you know what happens? You go on these things and you put
one's there.
No one's there.
You're talking to yourself.
You go on, you put something on, you're like, oh, like 10 people saw it. Cool, this is kind of cool. And then you put that same thing on Twitter and 4,000 people saw it. And you're like, well, what am I wasting my time? So there is that element of it too. It might be too late in the game. Or the other end of that, Frank, is something starts like a TikTok, just like, or like Instagram, for a better example. Something starts to catch fire like Instagram, and what happens? Facebook just buys it. And you know what I'm saying? So, and they maintain their foothold on things. So, yeah, let's move on. But I think it's actually, the way Roe v. Wade was the challenge of that time, and kind of still is a little bit. I think this is going to be the thing that defines this generation. Like, this is going to be the great debate. The same way Roe v. Wade became an issue and is still debated to this day, still defines what side of the political spectrum you fall on based on how you feel about that. I think this is going to be that big of a thing where people are going to be like, all right, we got to figure out what side of the coin that we're on.
I hope not. I hope this is something that we could put a cap on in the next.
Well, I hope so too. But again, I want to hammer home the point that because if you're a Democrat and you land the way you land on this right now, and you're a Republican and you land the way you land on this right now, I want everybody to keep in mind these things are interchangeable and can switch out, and then you could be the one that's in trouble or not in. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important for everybody. But we hammered it to death.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right,
that's fine.
Next topic. Ghislaine Maxwell is getting a TV show. It's not like she's not getting a TV show, but her story is getting a TV show. This was broke today on Deadline. Had the story, I believe. Yeah, Deadline here. So the film production company 11th Hour Films has taken the rights to this podcast called Hunting Ghislaine, which focused on when Ghislaine disappeared after Epstein was arrested. And they're going to turn that into a limited TV series. 6 parts. The podcast was made by
documentary style or like drama style?
No, I think drama style. It sounds like. Hunting Ghislaine tells the story of Maxwell, who allegedly blah, 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 blah. Maxwell vanished when Epstein's life began to unravel, but she reappeared when he was arrested by the FBI last year. She denies 6 charges of enticing girls, blah, blah, blah. Paul Cuddy, Eva Gutierrez, and Jill Green will executive produce for Sony. That's the 11th Hour. That's the Sony company, along with a couple of other people. Series consultant Cuddy, the creative director, said, quote, John's compelling podcast, Hunting Ghislaine, puts Ghislaine Maxwell center stage, unravels her story, and asks what went wrong for the girl who seemingly had it all. Set in a richly glittering international world, dark secrets are revealed, and always in the shadows looms the formative relationship between a daughter and her father. It has all the hallmarks of a premium drama.
All right.
What I find interesting about this too is, and who's the not Peter Thiel? There's an investment company. They own Barstool Sports. Peter something. Anyway, he went to Spotify and optioned Spotify. So he went and cut a deal with Spotify that said, "Hey, we have first rights at all of your podcasts." Meaning that if Spotify has a podcast that gains popularity, they have first right of refusal to whether or not they want to turn it into a movie. So we've entered this stage of where you used to option a book to become a movie. Now people are optioning podcasts to become TV shows or movies. I find that interesting.
So my question to everybody in the comments, who would play us in the movie version of Anthony on Air? I don't know. It's a tough question.
The guy from Entourage, Turtle. That's going to be my guy. Everybody always says that. Although he went and lost a lot of weight, and now it makes me sound like I don't know how heavy I really am when I say that.
No, come on. You know what's really weird? On 2 separate occasions, I've been told that I remind people of Jimmy Fallon.
And those people are lying and
tugging
on you. No, there's nothing similar.
No, a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with them.
Yeah, Fallon's way funnier than you are. What was I gonna say? Fallon's my guy, though. Fallon and I hung out once. I told you. Well, you know that story.
Let me pick up this name here. Put that up for you. That's for you. That's for you. You hold on to that.
I love dropping a few. I got names to drop, so I'm gonna drop them sometimes.
Drop away. I'll pick them up. That's fine.
What was I gonna say? I just realized that you're wearing a Rangers shirt. That's unnecessary. I don't really care for that.
Why?
Because
you're a big Islander fan?
Well, no, we want to have a certain amount of class on this podcast. We don't want to.
Oh, then you've come to the wrong podcast.
No, we don't want to drag that sort of behavior.
No class here. What are we talking about?
Finally, Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem have been cast to play Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in a new biopic.
I can see that. A lot of people are saying that's weird casting, but I see it.
I see her. Him, I don't know. His face is a little too big for me. I don't think Desi Arnaz had a face that big. You know what I'm saying? Like he got
a huge face.
He got a huge face and a big head. He's got a big old Hillary Clinton head on him. It's too much.
He's a caricature of himself.
Yeah, maybe this is just a bad picture, but I don't know about Javier Bardem. But I like Nicole Kidman. I feel like she could pull it off. I think she's really good.
Is Antonio Banderas too old?
Yeah, see, he would have been. That's a good. He might have been, maybe, but that would have been good. But I also feel like they kind of hit in their older days. What were they in their 30s or 40s? Not to say that that's old, but
yeah. Well, they got the show. I think they were maybe in their late 30s or something like that.
Like Banderas, I think can play 40. Like he can play down to 40.
I think they can make him. They could work that. Banderas could pull that off. I'm trying to think of anybody else. Bardem. I mean. He's a big dude.
And you know what, to me, I'm not saying he can't do it, but I feel like, and he's like a slow talker.
And can he do funny?
A deep voice. Yeah, can he do funny? Like, Desi was kind of like up and like excited all the time. And, you know, he had that delivery.
I can't picture Javier Bardem doing that.
Yeah. By the way, can we be honest? Is this not the greatest name of all time? Desi Arnaz? Like,
it makes you want to say Desi Arnaz.
No, it doesn't. To me, I just want to say Desi Arnaz. Like, to me, Desi Arnaz should be the most popular person on the. I don't know this.
I feel like he was at one time.
He was. That name was so. I don't know. There's something about the name Desi Arnaz. I don't know what it is. It's that sound. That sounds.
Was Desi short for something? Was it Desmond?
I don't know. That would be the most amazing turnaround ever, to go from Desmond to Desi Arnaz, you know?
Desi Arnaz. That's a good one. It's a good name. Beats the hell out of our names.
Oh, please. That's why I don't give out my last name. It's awful. Deadline reporting that Aaron Sorkin has already written the script for the upcoming biopic called Being the Ricardos, which will center on a single week of production of the real-life couple's groundbreaking comedy, I Love Lucy. The film will reportedly depict a major crisis in the marriage and careers of Ball and Arnaz, and will open with a table read on Monday of the beloved comedy and end with the filming in front of a live studio audience on Friday night. That's kind of exciting.
See, that is. I want to see. My big thing is who's going to play Fred and Ethel. See, Fred, a little older, way old. I feel like he was way older than all three of them. He was like 65.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were in their 30s and 40s.
Fred just looked like every grandpa that I knew. Like every one of my friends' grandpas looked like Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bald, always wearing slacks.
Who do you get for that? Maybe like a Jason Alexander?
Not bad. You gotta like gruff. Like he has a gruffness about him. You know, I can't remember his name, but he was in. Did you see the new Queen's Gambit?
No.
Okay. Did you see? Did you see the show The Stranger?
The Stranger.
Not The Stranger. The Outsider, was it? The one with Jason Bateman, and there's like I think it's the Outsider or something like that.
Nope.
All right. Well, anyway, there's a guy in that. He's in both things. I'm gonna look him up. He could play Fred Mertz.
What's his name? Bill Camp, Mr. Shable.
Yes, Mr. Scheibel.
Scheibel.
Bill Camp could do. Yeah, I think he'd be a good Fred Mertz.
Oh, okay. Let's see. There's Bill Camp. There's the guy that Frank's talking about for those of you that are watching on the YouTubes and the Facebooks.
There he is.
Maybe.
He's a good actor. He's a good actor.
What about
and you shave his beard, he's Mertz.
What about Picard there? What's his name?
Oh, all right. Patrick
Stewart?
Patrick Stewart.
What about Ben Kingsley? Too big.
Too big. I think even both of them are a little too old.
Are we just trying to name bald guys at this point?
Yeah, let's.
What about
Michael Chiklis?
Okay. What about a Seth Rogen?
Too young.
You think so? Could age him up.
Seth Rogen is our age.
Yeah, no, but they could age him up. That hurts. Don't say that because I'm not nearly as successful as Seth Rogen.
He is. No, not even close. But no, he's a little too young. He's way younger than Javier Bardem. I don't think you can go younger. I think you got to get someone older than Javier Bardem for Fred.
Yeah.
You should audition your son for Little Ricky.
Oh, there you go. But it's I'm gonna get him to
and
say.
You can off your son's fame.
I'm gonna say get him to say Babalu. We're gonna start practicing for sure.
There you go.
For sure. I do also love this thing too, where Sorkin did it for the Apple documentary, the Steve Jobs documentary, where it's just like this little finite window, this small little period of time. I love.
It doesn't start with their birth and end with their death.
Yeah. I like those too, but there's something kind of exciting about there's so much here. We're just going to focus in on this, and we can tell this story, and then other people can tell other stories if they want to one day.
It's going to be fun and exciting to see what's her name as Lucille Ball. I can't picture her doing that outlandish a thing,
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman. I can't picture her being wild and crazy like Lucille Ball was.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like it's not going to be a lot of that. Like we might see little flashes in that as they're doing the read.
If they don't do the chocolate eating scene, then I don't know what I'm there for. Why am I watching? When they eat all the chocolates in the factory.
Yeah. Iconic scene.
Iconic. If they don't do that, then I'm out.
I would say most iconic scene from that show, right? I mean,
yeah, probably that. I mean, for me, I loved when the Marx Brothers, when Harpo Marx was on it.
Yeah.
And Lucille Ball dressed up as Harpo, and they did the mirror scene. That for me was the best. But yeah, probably the most iconic is that chocolate eating scene.
My feeling is if that is not the episode that they're filming that's taking place during this time period, that you will see that on a TV somewhere as they come in and out of a scene or whatever, or it'll be on in the background, or somebody will reference it. Because you're right, you got to kind of have something of that in the.
That's people are there for. Everybody knows that scene. Give the people what they want. It's like the Star Wars people. Give us Jedi and Sith. Stop giving us Han Solo. Damn it. I love Han Solo, but we don't need movies about him. We got him. We know. We understand his story.
It's like going to see
Jedi and Sith.
It's like going to see Zeppelin and they don't do Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah. No, come on. You know what we're here for.
Yeah.
Give me lightsabers and blasters and ships that could blow up planets. That's what I want to see.
Agreed. All right, my friend. I think we'll leave it there. You good? Ain't got anything else?
I'm good. Hit those comments. We love seeing all the comments down there. We try to read all of them. So go nuts.
Yeah, keep the comments coming for sure. And of course, links and info on how you can reach all of us at anthonyonair.com. Enjoy whatever it is you're doing, and we'll catch you on the next episode.